Welcome back to the Plug In for More podcast. Today's episode is going to be an overview looking at some of the new updates in the EV world. We're going to talk about the new prototypes and concepts that are coming out at the LA Auto Show, as well as a new exhibit at the Peterson Automotive Museum. And Bryant takes a road trip in his EV6 in some cold weather.
I'm excited to be back. I've missed you guys.
Aw, miss you too, big guy.
Welcome to Plug In for More, brought to you by EVUniverse.com. EV Universe is your one-stop shop for all things related to the electric vehicle. Here on this podcast, our goal is to educate, inspire, and hopefully make your transition into the electric vehicle marketplace a lot less intimidating. And now, here are your hosts, Mike, Tom, and Bryant.
Can you guys hear me okay? How is my audio?
Really good.
It sounds pretty good.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah. It might actually be better than
I
when
would
you're
agree.
at your house.
I was going to say the same. I might be better.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I'll just go record in my car. I mean, I don't, I mean, it really, it's that the room is pretty echoey, and this is like, I feel like a pretty good sound deadening in this vehicle.
And maybe that can be your gimmick. You can just sit in your Tesla and bring your good mic and then do your podcast recording in there.
Yeah.
Bring it in the Roadster.
I think that defeats the purpose, but okay, yeah.
So what were you doing in San Francisco? What was that?
That was a road trip, but it wasn't in an EV, unfortunately. I was looking at classic cars, and fun cars, but nothing to do with EVs, unfortunately. I did see quite a few Teslas, though. Shocker, in San Francisco. It's like every other car. Rivians everywhere. I mean, it was pretty cool just to see like every hotel I stayed at had a charging station. It gave me an idea of like this is what the future of the rest of the country is going to eventually get caught up with. San Francisco having charging stations everywhere, every hotel, pretty much everywhere I went, you had accessible charging stations, which is drastically different than I'd say most places you go to.
Yeah, I think it's really cool when you look at like LA and San Francisco and what that infrastructure looks like today versus the East Coast, which is where I'm at. There is still a significant amount of charging right now, but it's not to the same level. It's not even close. And then I go home to the Midwest where you guys are at, and a lot of places there's nothing. So it's kind of these, you can see the future in stages depending on where you go in the country. So to me, that's pretty interesting and a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, I think my biggest surprise is I was up in Chico, California, which if you don't know, I didn't know, about 3.5 hours north of San Francisco, home to Chico State. Never heard of it before in my life. But as I pull into my hotel, I see the green glow of an Electrify America station. And I was like, are you kidding me? Chico has an Electrify America. So like to your point, Mike, the infrastructure is built out very impressive compared to, where we're at in Michigan, which we have Electrify America stations, don't get me wrong, but they're not in small little towns like Chico. Anyway, we want to talk about a couple things. The Peterson Automotive Museum, if you've not been to it, I've had the pleasure of being to it a few times, is a gem in automotive American culture, I think. It's a pretty sweet design. You can't really drive past it if you're in LA. If you don't know what it looks like, I don't even know how to describe it. You should definitely Google it. But there's some really, really fantastic cars there. And in the basement is the vault. It's sponsored by Haggerty, and that's where all the really cool cars are. Take a tour. Highly recommend going. It's just an automotive gem. I'd say it's probably the best automotive museum in the entire country. Maybe in competition with LeMay up in Seattle. But we're kind of excited because they have a new exhibit, and the new exhibit is all about Teslas. So they've got the 2019 Tesla Cybertruck prototype there. They have obviously the really cool new Tesla Roadster, which we'll talk about. But Mike, Tom, what are your thoughts on some of the displays or some of the social media coming out of this museum?
To me, it's cool to get some more some more photographs of the Cybertruck. I mean, for me, someone who has a reservation of that truck right from the beginning, like within the first few minutes, and to my wife's displeasure, I guess you could say, I accidentally ordered 3 that first day because their website was down, and I kept hitting submit, submit, and submit. And the next day after I woke up, she was like, "Did you see what this thing looks like?" I'm like, "Yeah, it looks awesome." And she goes, "No, it doesn't. It looks horrible. How we're not having that car in our driveway." But she's like, you better not have ordered one." And I'm like, I didn't order one because And I stopped right there because I'd ordered 3 and it wasn't technically lying. And then she finds out later that it was actually 3, and she's like, "Well, it's a good thing they're only $100 per reservation because that's, yeah, I don't like it." So anyway, so that was the end of that, but, I've been looking forward to that Cybertruck for a few years now, and it's to me, it's super cool, it's super futuristic looking. Hopefully, it shows up in the near future before all the other, um, EV trucks surpass it as far as performance and what it can do, but, yeah, I mean, between that and the Roadster exhibits, the new and the old Roadster, I it's a really cool display. If you haven't checked it out, make sure you go. As Bryant said, make sure you get into the vault and take a look at that because there's a lot there. It's not just the cars. There's some other aspects there to the Tesla world. And any Tesla person, if you're a fanboy or not, it's something to check out just from the progression of what the EVs have done over the years and where it was and where it is today and what we have to look forward to.
And I'm with your wife, Mike. The Cybertruck is hideous. It's an abomination. I'll be honest.
Well, it's kind of a triangle. I guess you don't like triangles. If that's a problem for you and your geometric shapes. That's for you to have a problem with, and my wife, same deal there. But
But
um,
but I will suspect that maybe the Cybertruck will be here before my Mach-E. I don't know. Just
yeah,
just
most
it's
likely for
possible.
you. Yeah, if everything works in my favor, it will be. Yeah.
I mean, I had the same reaction when I saw that Peterson was unveiling this display. I thought it was the Moonlander display, and I didn't realize, it's a Cybertruck. Because I'm with Mike on this one. I think it's cool, but I don't know how practical it's going to be. Like, can it fit in your garage? How tall is this thing? The tires are like 36 inches. Like, there's some practicality problems with it.
Isn't it supposed to be able to float? Didn't I hear that?
Yes, according to Elon Musk and Twitter, and we are not going to get into that whole debate on this podcast. If you're looking for more information on that, go someplace else.
We know what we're gonna do when Mike gets his, though. We're gonna test this out, right? We're gonna take it into a lake and see if it floats. Like, Mike, let's just get on record right now. Like, are we gonna do this?
I mean, as long as we know who the insurance agent is, then we're fine. Um, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool. One of the key aspects that I like about it is that it's going to be, the doors are the whole body, the exoskeleton is not really going to get car dings and door dings and that kind of thing. And that's a with little kids, and I'm sure you guys know they like to just pop those doors open and smash them into your vehicle, and I've had that happen to a number of my cars over the years. And so I'm looking forward to baseballs and footballs knocking into it and not having to worry about shopping carts or whatever it may be hitting the car, hitting the truck. So it might be blinding, it might be ugly, but at least it won't be dented.
Yeah, I think it's cool. Don't get me wrong. I think the other car though that I'm more cool is that's on display is the Roadster, like you talked about, and you have a nice picture of yours behind your desk. It's a 2017 Roadster it's on display, and then they have the Model S Plaid on display as well. But Mike, do you have a Tesla Roadster on order too, or like can you even order one?
Yeah, so just to give my background on the Roadster, so I have one of the originals, VIN 975, and that's it's a radiant red 2.5 sport. You haven't seen it on the YouTube channel, check it out. We've got a little walk around video of it. But that's sort of that's my baby. But I did have one of the new ones on order for a while, and then I got my reservation back just because it was taking forever and it's just money sitting at Tesla. So I don't have one on order right now. And so if we get some more information that one's coming, I might put in another reservation for that because I that is kind of a dream car. But for right now, no, I'm gonna wait and see because I'm really not sure when it's gonna hit. If it's gonna be 2025 or 2030, not gonna be 2022, that's for sure.
Why
So we'll
wouldn't you
see.
just get a Polestar 6?
That's a good question. And I just got the email back that I did not put in my reservation deposit down in time. So that has slipped through my fingers and we'll see what happens. But
It's a disappointment.
I'm
It
so
is. I mean, that
disappointed.
is a beautiful.
You had one job. One job.
Mhm. I always count on you 2 to make me feel good about my life decisions, and, apparently that was not the right one. So, appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Well, we can
So
always just do a Viper
the
conversion.
Alright, so let's back up for the listeners that haven't heard this before, and we're going off the rails a little bit on today's podcast, but yeah, there has been some discussion on doing a EV conversion, by myself and Aaron Jones or, some other group, we'll see, but doing a Gen 1 Roadster or, yeah, excuse me, Gen 1 Dodge Viper conversion. So a lot of the purists out there with the V10 may not like hearing that, but that was kind of the plan. So that's what Bryant's referring to. I had kind of a whim that I wanted to do this and almost purchased one a little while ago, but didn't do it. I think I thought through that a little bit more, and now I just get ragged on from time to time. So again, thank you, gentlemen, for that.
we are in awe of your maturity and restraint.
I've got no words. Thank you.
I love it. I
You
love
got the
it.
words.
So to put a wrap on the Peterson Museum, they coincided this display with the LA Auto Show, and just really quick, the last thing in the Peterson I'll say is I just think it's really cool to see electric vehicles in an automotive museum like the Peterson because they have some really really historically significant cars. Right, they've got Can-Am race cars. There's a whole gauntlet. I can't even name all of them. There's like over like 800 cars in this place. The fact that the Tesla's there is pretty cool. But if we were going to switch gears a little bit, the LA Auto Show debuted multiple vehicles. They had tons of EVs there. The two that kind of caught our eye because we've already covered that, right? We've talked about the Pebble Beach. If you've not listened to that podcast episode, go back. There's quite a few unveiled there. But the two that caught our eyes, which we want to talk about just briefly, was the new Lucid EV SUV. It's called the Gravity, and then Toyota unveiled this concept called the BZ. It's a smaller SUV, but it's probably going to be something around Toyota's second EV. Starting with the Lucid, just a few interesting stats on this car. So it's probably going to be launched in 2024, maybe 2025. Again, it's called the Gravity. It's pretty big. It's going to be offered in 3 rows with an entirely, glass roof, which is pretty cool. It's going to challenge the Lucid Air for the longest range. So the Lucid Air right now has a 520-mile range, and they're going to say that this is going to be really close to that. I just can't imagine how heavy this is going to be. So I would assume the battery is going to be very large. Um, I think it's kind of neat thinking that the thing's going to have somewhere around 1,000 horsepower is what they're talking about. So I don't know. It doesn't have 0 to 60 times, but they're talking about 3 motors as an option in addition to the 2 motors. And I think the biggest thing is how much space. So that they specifically, their Derek Jenkins, their senior vice president, when he unveiled it, said this is going to be a supercar in disguise with an SUV type space and cargo space that seems impossibly big relative to the exterior size of the vehicle. So I'd say most EVs that have come out in the SUV space have been very streamlined, very aerodynamic. This thing looks more like a Ford Expedition from the 2000s. It's not super streamlined, but they're trying to maximize the interior space. So that was kind of intriguing to me. Like I said, the 1200 horsepower 3 motor taken right from the Air Sapphire sedans, going to make this thing go quick. But Mike, Tom, any other thoughts on the new Lucid?
I mean, for the Lucid Air itself, if you've seen the trunk on one of those, it's not. I would say it's not the most user friendly. And I think this will, kind of fit that gap for for the owners that need to, take long trips, take a lot of cargo with them. This is going to be a great road trip car. I mean, if you're thinking 500 miles ish, 1200 horsepower. The interior on Lucids is amazing to begin with. It's extremely high quality. It's a very nice place to spend your time. So I think this is going to be just probably one of the top road trip vehicles out there. Period. Um, I mean, 500 miles. In my gosh, that's just a massive, massive range. But It's gonna be heavy, I think. So I don't think it's probably gonna my guess again is it's not gonna handle quite as well, but no SUVs really handle as good as, sedans do.
Yeah, I like it. I'm a fan of Lucid. I think they're a really sharp, well thought out car, and fit and finish is impressive. So I'm looking forward to having the chance to check one out, and I would love to get my hands on a Gravity and own one. My partner is far more concerned with the classic vehicle. Like she would prefer to go back to having like a early 2000s Jeep XJ, like bare bones Jeep as her daily driver, but she likes the Lucid. And I could probably convince her to get into one of those, but whereas like the Tesla or the Mach-E I'm getting, she doesn't really care for.
I mean, after spending some time in one, I mean, I can see why.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just, they're they're very well done. Very, very well done.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. The other one was interesting from Toyota. It's the BZ concept. It looks like the exterior looks like to me like a Mazda CX-5. About that size, and the styling
Yeah.
looks very similar.
Yeah.
The BZ stands from Beyond Zero. As you know, I think Toyota is behind in the the rest of the world in EVs right now. They have one BZ4X crossover that's been unveiled, but they have nothing really in the marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big departure from what they were saying even a few months ago. I mean, they were really on this hybridization is gonna be the key to the future, and it seems like they've kind of finally gone away from that, and they're really, embracing the all EV, not hybrid, mindset. Which, I mean, when I look at this BZ concept, I mean, I personally like the look of it. I think it's a sharp looking car. They've got a lot of catching up to do. They really do. Because if you look at even the Fisker Ocean production just hit on that car, and this is I think in that same general size. I don't think it. I mean, from what I'm reading about it, it doesn't really have any large benefits other than being made from Toyota, which your reliability and fit and finish should be right up there, over what the Fisker Ocean is. But I mean, there's some stiff competition Toyota has to make a break in this market.
Yeah, I would agree. And the off chance that Toyota's president, Akio Toyoda, is listening, please do not go down the Audi naming around the Genesis, or not the Genesis, the e-tron, because I'm starting to feel like we have the BZ4X, we have the BZ, we have the BZ3X. Like, please do not do that. You
Well,
make these cars
let's just do
individually
this. Let's just
named.
have an open letter to any automobile manufacturer that before you go into your naming conventions, consult with us. Let us help you. Help us help you not making a confusing car name.
Yes,
I'm
agreed.
Yeah, yeah, yes.
Okay.
I love it. Um, I think to your point, Mike, this is going to be, I think, the platform that they're going to build a bunch of EVs from. So the exterior, I think, is pretty close to what it's going to look like. The interior, I thought a couple interesting things. Taking the yoke steering wheel from the Tesla, and also it's hard to describe this, but the dash is curved and the screen is curved. So I don't know if that's going to be in production. I don't know about a curved screen. Sounds expensive. Sounds actually kind of hard to hit buttons when you're driving because it's not flat, to change things. But and then obviously we've heard a lot of pros and cons about the Tesla yoke steering wheel. I think you either love it or hate it. Mike, any opinions on the yoke? What do you think?
So the first couple days driving a vehicle with the yoke steering wheel takes some definitely getting used to. I mean, and it's fine when you're going kind of on a straight or mildly curvy road. When you start to get parking situations, that's where it gets to be a little bit more difficult, especially with the Teslas that don't have the stock for reverse and drive and that sort of thing. And you're really just depending on the car to do it for yourself or pushing a button on the screen. So from a visibility standpoint, I think they're great, but I'm kind of a I guess old school, and I really like a steering wheel better, even if the visibility is slightly reduced, just because I like to move my hands around in different positions. Where in a yoke, you're really locked in, almost like an IndyCar driver, and that to me just it's not even a usability thing. It's just for overall comfort from day to day. I just don't want to have my hands in exactly the same spot, especially if I'm going to go on a couple hour road trip. Sometimes I like to put them on the top of the steering wheel, and there just isn't. For what it's worth, I mean, you gotta try it. That's the thing. End of the day, you just gotta try it, see if you like it. You're gonna love it. You might not.
You're listening to the Plug In for More podcast. If you're looking for information on electric vehicles components, or information on how to reduce your carbon footprint, look no further than evuniverse.com. evuniverse.com is your one-stop shop for all things related to electric vehicle.
So, Bryant, you wasted a weekend going down to Ann Arbor. There's a college there, maybe university. There's maybe a football team. I'm familiar with it, but I'm a Michigan State fan through and through. So, I mean, I don't know why you'd want to go to Ann Arbor and waste a trip, but I guess you're not paying for gas, so it's not that big of a waste.
Yeah, I went to Ann Arbor twice. One to pound that Michigan State team into the ground. That was a that was a good game. And then a couple weeks ago to the Nebraska game, Tom. So yeah, you're right. 110,000 of my buddies. We like to cheer on football, but obviously we did a three-part, or you guys did a three-part series on winter driving, and I just want to kind of finish that off because I just did a 500-mile road trip to Tom's Point in my EV6, and it was cold. So when I first left, I thought this was really interesting. When I left, it was 64 degrees and sunny in northern Michigan. When I returned, it was 29 degrees and snowing. So I got the full gamut, and I learned five things or five takeaways from it that I wanted to share just briefly. I think number one is common sense, but we still see a lot of questions our way. Gas-powered vehicles lose range when the temperature drops, and so does electric vehicles. So when I left, I had about a 276-mile range. It was 64 degrees outside. Our first charging stop was about 145 miles away, so I had about a 130-mile buffer. As we drove on, the range dropped because we were driving at 75, 80 miles an hour, and the temperature also dropped from 64 to 44. So we arrived at our first fast charger with 80 miles left on the estimator. So my first learning is give yourself a little bit more range estimation if you're going to be driving in the cold, because if you're going to be driving fast and in the cold, that's going to drop a little bit quicker. Number two, a lot of vehicles have this, but I use the battery preconditioning called winter mode in the EV6. So what this does is when you select it, you put in a charging station into the navigation, and it starts warming up the battery when you get close to the charging station. That also uses some of your range up, right? But it allows your battery to charge faster in cold weather because it's already up to speed or up to temperature. So it increases the speed. So I would say we basically achieve the same charging speeds we usually get at Electrify America, from 20% to 80% in about 18, 19 minutes with this feature activated. So that was really beneficial. The third one is pretty common sense, but if it's snowing out, use snow mode. So we got on the way back some snow. We put it in snow mode. It engages the second motor in the front and turns it into basically an all-wheel drive vehicle. However, this is going to take a little bit of your range off from an eco mode, and it's going to stop your regenerative braking, which I think Tom and Aaron covered very well in our last episode. If you've not listened to that, go back and listen to it. It was very helpful on this road trip. But just know that activating all-wheel drive and having the regenerative braking turn off is going to lower your range. The last two things I learned was charging may take longer at non-fast chargers. So we spent the night. We got up in the morning. I had about a 35% charge when I got to Ann Arbor after the one stop. Went to the football game for 4 hours and afterwards ate dinner. So I was at the charge point charger a good 7 hours, and it was a slow charger, so I wasn't expecting to be charged fast, but I was still charging most of that time around 3.7 kilowatt hours, which I'll translate into English is super slow. We had achieved 6 to 10 on the same charger just a few weeks prior when I was warm out. But just be prepared for this because the battery preconditioning did not know we are going to a charge point slow charger. We just put in, it just recognized that we're going to a parking deck. So it didn't warm up the battery, and the battery had been sitting all night. And then my last tip, which I've already talked about, give yourself more of a mileage buffer. Know that in the winter, you're going to have to drive slower. It's going to take a lot longer to get to your destination. So maybe an hour drive is going to be more of a 2-hour drive if you're caught in the snow. And if you want your creature comforts, I had my creature comforts, the steering wheel heater on, the seat heaters were up. We had the cabin temperature up at 75 because my wife really likes to be warm. That's going to drop the range. I didn't see a ton because the heat pump was working really well. But if you don't have a heat pump, really give yourself a buffer. And I would say that we lost 276-mile range when we started. in the colder weather is more down like 235 miles. So lastly, just use the temperature preconditioning if you can. Get the vehicle up to temp, because if you have an EV6 or a Tesla and it gets cold out and there's lots of snow, know that your recessed door handles are going to freeze shut, and you need to use the cabin preheat feature to warm up the car. So that's what I learned. Any thoughts, questions, Mike, Tom?
Yeah, those door handles are such a problem that your wife even texted me about it. So she wanted to make it well known that the recommended vehicle, the door handles suck for winter, and so just be prepared for some blowback, everybody. If you get a vehicle that has those recessed door handles and they freeze up, either use a preconditioning so that they warm up a little bit, knock on them a little bit to get them to open up, or expect a text message from your friends and family that they're iced up.
It really bothered her. If she texted you, it really bothered her.
How did the EV6 do once you got into some snow? Did you ever notice any slipping with regenerative braking or traction control issues?
It's a great question. I would say, so it has all season tires on it.
Hmm.
They're not bad, but I wouldn't say it's going to be my preferred winter driving car. I'm going to probably drive my truck, which has brand new tires, really nice snow tires on it. I'm probably drive my truck when it gets really, really snowy, because I decided not to get winter tires for this car this year. It only has 9,000 miles on it.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say it's awesome, but I think it's the tires. I think it's the
Yeah.
tires, and you guys covered that really well in the previous episode of why, right? It's got those EV tires.
Hmm.
But I was impressed in the deep snow. Like, it did really well in the deep snow. I would say it was the icy conditions. I'd say it's normal car. It's just like a normal car with all seasons, but I was impressed. I like that it turns off the regenerative braking, because I could see how that would throw you if the
Yeah.
regenerative braking turns on. It kind of jerks the car a little bit, or if you change that in the paddle shifters from level 1 to level 4 or whatever. The iPedal slows the car down and just makes it weird. So I like that it's turned that off. I shouldn't say it's turned it off. It's moved it to level 1, so it's still on, but very minor. But I would say I'm blaming the summer all season tires and not the EV6.
That's fair. I think that about wraps up what we were going to talk about here today, guys. But I just want to take a minute to thank the people listening to the podcast. And we've been really overwhelmed by how many of you are supportive and reaching out and supplying us with ideas for content. And we want to make sure that we're getting to those. So one of the episodes that we're going to have coming up will be a series on buying a used EV. That's in the pipes coming down. And we also just want to make sure that you're reaching out and offering suggestions if there's things you want to hear, because we're open to it. And we want to make sure that we're answering questions for people to help ease that transition into the electric vehicle space, which is the whole purpose of this podcast existing.
All right. So Tom, your Mach-E is supposed to be built on the 12th, and I'm hoping you maybe get an early Christmas present. And for our listeners out there that are maybe on waiting lists and EVs are supposed to be delivered, maybe you all get an early Christmas present.
That would be an amazing Christmas present. Thanks, guys. It was great talking with you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Take care, guys.
Happy New Year. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Plug In for More. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, check out the one-stop EV marketplace, evuniverse.com. Until next time.